chairs back here.
My name is Bob Danny. I'm the part-time assistant town manager. I'm the program manager for the. I want to spend just a few minutes giving you a background on the project. And then I'm going to turn it over to the consultants right over here, Bill Steyer, Carol Rizio from Land Studio, and they're going to give you a little presentation and walk you through some design alternatives. Then we're going to do some homework, or actually classwork, and provide recommendations. This program is done under a federal funded program called the Transportation Alternatives Program. It used to be called T21, Transportation Enhancement for the 21st Century. They renamed it, and the intent is to provide communities alternative forms of transportation, non-motorized transportation. Basically, they're bike trails. Biking, skateboarding, any non-motorized vehicle, as well as walking and running. The program is funded 80% with federal money, 20% with local money. So there's a lot of bang for the buck with this particular program. It's administered through the Virginia Department of Transportation. So the feds, the Federal Highway Administration, gives the money to VDOT. The Transportation Board, the State Transportation Board, approves the projects, and VDOT administers through it, then through the local town staff, which is me. So that's how it's funded. How does this phase 3 fit with what we've done so far and what we are going to do in the future? If you get a chance, this is the old 2007 master plan. It's over here. I'm going to update it. Don't pay too much attention to the phases on it because they're out of date. Phase 1 of the project was in Central Park. So the perimeter trail you see in Central Park was funded from this program. The project, the master plan of that project was about a $1.2 million project, $1 million of which was funded by grant. The second phase is just about complete now. That's North Beach Street, Washington Avenue. That's a $2 million project. And $1.6 million was funded by federal grants. That project was very important because it connects the park to the walkway into the Oyster Farm and Kings Creek Marina, and then to the boardwalk at the beach. This is phase 3. This connects the park to Mason Avenue. Now, we have on Mason Avenue actually started what I call phase 2A, not under the federal program, but with partnerships with developers. And the town purchased Strawberry Street Plaza. You see that's improved now with pavers. And then we worked with the developer, Patrick Gann, for Strawberry Street Station to extend that all the way to Beach Street. So we have the start of the south side of Mason Avenue. When he does phase 2 of this project, that will be extended west to the medical center. So we'll have most of Mason Avenue, the south side, done. Whatever happens finally to the last piece of property, west of the medical center, a lot of people refer to as the Tabby property, although he doesn't own it anymore. We hope to enter a partnership with that developer to extend the trail to the boardwalk on the south side. Phase 4 will most likely be improvements to the Bay Avenue boardwalk. So when we're done, phase 3 and 4, we will essentially have a loop from the Oyster Farm all the way through here to here and here. Then the remaining work will be down to fit in here. So that's how it fits in the total plan. Questions? Yes?
Just a
clarify. You said VDOT was kind of taking the lead for the federal funding component.
VDOT
So
does.
did they complete all the NEPA documentation?
Yes, it's all done. And it gets updated. The NEPA documentation, for those that don't know, it's the National Environmental Policy Act. And that is updated for each phase of the trail project.
The ability to walk from Washington Avenue to Mason Avenue on Fig, that will be years away, right? That's nowhere in the near-term plans.
Well, that's up to the town council, Mike. They've expressed an interest in doing Bay Avenue improvements as the next phase after phase 3. They could change their mind. I think they need to hear from the citizens on that. What your
Thinking about
priorities are.
walking around the town. The ability to walk around the town is compromised by that.
I understand that, but if you have a sense that there's a better priority for the next phase, then make that known to the town council. Let's see. Well, one other thing, this entire project for phase 3, as well as phase 2, is all done in the right-of-way. Not done on any private property. So because of that, we have to comply with VDOT standards and Federal Highway Administration standards. So when we build the trail, we've got to fix stuff as we go by. So we've got bad curbs, bad driveways, that type of thing, it gets fixed. Other questions before I turn it over? Yes?
I don't know if I'm premature asking it, but existing driveways, will they stay there? I mean, we won't lose our driveways?
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
But in general, if you want your driveway, you got your driveway.
Okay, thank you.
And I say in general because I know some of the driveways are maybe not in very good repair. If they're not really useful for anything, giving up that driveway actually helps us in the balance of pervious and impervious surface that we have to maintain. But if you want your driveway, no one will take your driveway.
Bill, can I ask a quick question? Sure. Before we move on to the next phase, when do we expect the previous phase to be officially done?
Good question.
I mean, we still have landscaping,
Okay.
lights haven't been turned on.
The lights have, we have a punch list that the contractor is working on. They've got to September 15th to complete it. That excludes landscaping that hasn't been completed. We're going to defer that to November. So that portion of the deferred work will not be done right now because we don't want to plant any more trees that are going to die in the summer. The value of remaining work is roughly $45,000 out of a $2 million project. But I'm as frustrated as you are.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. Other questions?
Just curious, when you started the last phase, how far over did they exceed the project timeline? Since we live on this street,
Well,
I mean, I don't want to have to.
they're over 200 days behind schedule. But that project is very, very different than this project. That project required extensive stormwater installations and that type of thing. And we were working from essentially a blank palette of continuous asphalt that had to be dealt with. And in fact, the asphalt was awful. When we got in there, we found out that we just put on a seal. It wasn't even gravel. One other question?
Yeah, just one thing before you're too far too. I'm just curious, like, out of all the trail stuff, I mean, I like so much of it, and certainly on my block, of the southernmost block of Peach, like anything will be an improvement. I am just curious before we talk about these alternatives, get too far into it, for the other 2 blocks of Peach kind of between me and the park, they're actually already pretty nice. I'm sure that later there'll be some debate as to whether we should go this way or that way. Is it even an option at this point to leave them, or are we sort of at this point, because of all the other money we've done, all these other trail, are we committed to doing something there?
Pretty much are if we want to get the commercial block. Because there has to be connectivity.
What, say that again?
There has to be connectivity. You can't just jump around and do islands.
Did you say the commercial block? I don't remember.
I'll explain some of that in a minute when we get to the presentation.
Between Randolph and Mason. Okay, I'm taking way too much time, I'm not trying to, you know, but you need to see the presentation, so, Bill?
Hello. One of these tables doesn't have a scale. Which one is it? You got one, you got the other one. It comes right here. First thing I would like to do is to extend my gratitude to everyone in this room. Because by being here, you're showing how much you respect and care about your town. I've been to a lot of town meetings, and I don't ever see crowds that show up like this. So you guys deserve a praise for being here. What we're going to do is, this is not a final solution to what we're looking at. You guys are part of the solution. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to do a design workshop exercise, where I have put some things together to hopefully spark some curiosity, maybe even some debate, maybe even some things that really do need to get ironed out. And we're going to talk about some of those things, and we're going to talk about them in our groups, and we're going to talk about them with our neighbors, to find out what really matters for how it is that we're going to pull together a project that can have a consensus throughout your entire town. The agenda for tonight is basically, we're going to start with this presentation. At 6:30, we're going to break off, and you're going to start doing your workshop. Here, what you have on your table is you have a physical survey, which is basically shows you what's happening within this project area. All right? Then you have another sheet here that has two alternatives that's on it. These two alternatives are, in my mind, mix and match. Okay? There's some ideas that have already come from some of you that I've included in these concepts, and there's some that, because I've been doing this for a while, I interjected some professional thoughts about what's going on. So then we will get into being able to talk about
Would it
it.
be okay to work as one group since it's a small town?
This is not small.
That way we can all hear each other.
It would be much easier because the way that I had you sign in is that I had, if you notice, to put your initials beside your name. That's because each one here that feels like they have a voice that needs to be heard in this design process, you're going to make comments on these sheets, and you're going to initial beside them. So that when it comes to the end, and we can tally how it is that everybody thinks about what's being presented and what these options are, is we'll have a way to weigh it. If we were to try to use everybody in this group to do that, we would be here for quite some time.
I disagree.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to know what the requirements are? Because I heard the only reason to do part of Peach Street was because to get the money for the commercial area. I mean, what are the requirements to make it connect? Does it have to be 6 foot of sidewalk, 4 foot, 8 foot?
Yeah, yes, we're gonna get into that. What I'm doing right now is I'm giving you an update about what you have in front of you. So the other things are just basically there for you to understand in general what the elevation of these streets could look like, maintaining the historic integrity of the town itself. At 7:15, each one of these groups will select an individual to discuss and express your thoughts and your ideas as a collective group. And then we will conclude at 7:45, or if I need to be here for a little while longer and work through the exercise, then we can do that as well. The Trail Master Plan, as Bob had already mentioned, was done in 2007, but we are going to be working on trying to get to a point to update the phasing process about what was gotten done and what different types of alignments have been made and get it up to par. I know it works. There it goes. All right. Originally, when we did the town master plan for the trail, we focused on the history. What we heard from the citizens of the town was the historic integrity. One thing that you don't find anywhere else in Virginia is the existing patterns that you have from a historical standpoint in Cape Charles. So, you know, do we want to continue to embrace the integrity of what that historic vision was originally intended to be? Or not? That's a decision that you guys are going to help me to make tonight. These are some of the historic images that I'm sure most of you have seen before. that was gained from the Historical Society about what some of these street patterns used to look like. Now, when they were originally done, because I've worked with a lot of old towns, in the past, back in the day, they didn't have arborists and horticulturalists and all these people that would come out, and they didn't talk about how you actually space things out and space trees. They just took boxwoods and shoved them up against buildings, and they placed trees about 10 feet apart that eventually ended up with a major spread, which you will see from your survey once you get to looking at it, that some of the existing historic tree pattern is still evident. However, due to time, disease, and or storm events and such like that, it has become dysregulated. So those are some of the things that we want to talk about tonight. Do you guys want to continue to try to hold on to that integrity? Like I mentioned, there's a survey. This one here you can't see very well, but you can see here in these, and my pointer does not work on this screen, so I apologize for having to use my finger. The green circles that you see here in this diagram is the existing tree patterns that you have.
Could you just orient people so they know
Yes.
what block the end of
This is the park over here. This is Mason over here. All right? This is what people are terming as the commercial block, and these two here are what people are terming as the residential block. Okay? So you can see how in the preliminary analysis that some of your pattern and your structure or your streetscape has become irregular, to use an easy word.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
That really bothers me. So, is there a problem with irregular?
What's wrong with that?
No, not at all.
I just wanted to get that clear.
No. I am not here to judge, opinionate, offend, or hopefully I can encourage people to really get their ideas out. Because that's what this meeting is all about here tonight, is you guys. And if you've got something that you feel that needs to be heard, I need it on this paper. So I know how to respond to it. But it's just a matter of fact as far as an irregular pattern that has evolved over time. That's not necessarily bad. What you see that's on this diagram here, the ones that are in red is your overhead utilities. Okay? Now, some people see overhead utilities as an eye constraint, an aesthetic discouragement. Other people really like it. I want to hear what you guys think. The rest of what you see on this diagram here has to do with some of the existing drainage patterns which we've got to look at. And what I am hoping that you will help me with tonight is to identify if you live here. So if you know that there's some ponding water happening somewhere, grab one of these black Sharpies, put it down. This pond's right here every time it rains. So I will be able to understand that. I can study the topo map and come to discern that for myself as well. So that's,
Before you go on,
just in a nutshell. Yes, sir.
there wasn't a legend on that. What, the larger green circles, smaller green circles?
No, all the green circles are your existing trees and the canopy size. The existing canopy of those trees.
Yeah.
The bushes are not there.
No, there's no bushes. The survey did not pick up any bushes.
Should be said.
It finished, the survey I'm looking at, it's got
This one does.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. There's a couple of bushes on that survey. But trust me, the bush is not, it's not the important part of what we're going to be here tonight. Because we want to get the big picture of what you want for the extension of this part of the trail. Any more questions in relation to this diagram? Yes, sir.
I got a question on the other side of the peach, because when I read this thing here, it talks about 8-foot wide sidewalks, and it talks about how far to the street and that type of stuff. And it says Peach Street, so was the other side of the street done the same way? Because it doesn't look that way.
Okay, what we're doing when it comes to this trail, and like Bob was speaking about earlier, the minimum standard for the trail width is 8 feet. Okay, so what we are going to do when we get into putting together the construction documents, or a little prior to that, is I intend to have a have a conversation with VDOT, as I have on some other projects, and see what type of latitude they will allow
But
us.
on Peachtree on the other side is 10 foot, and it says
Let
8.
me, let me just.
There's one
Yeah,
table.
Let me answer it. Okay.
Yes.
The west side of North Peach Street is 10 foot, the east side is 8 foot.
I got it. When you read the plan, it says 8 foot for Peachtree
That would be right back there.
online.
Well, the plan online,
Yes,
the
sir.
master plan,
Yes, sir.
yeah, well, again, that's 2007 plan, and as we do each phase, like we're doing tonight, we go through a design, detailed design process that changes that. But it's on one side, it's 8 feet, on the east side, on the west side, it's the 10 foot. There's no. We're going to update the next round.
Does that satisfy your question?
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Because it concerns me, because when you look at the thing, the median's much narrower, everything's totally different than what the master plan was.
Some of the time, and Carol can probably chime in a little bit here, because she was the lead designer on the construction documents for the phase 2. But I can tell you that a lot of times, whenever you're doing the master planning, that when you get into the infrastructure, the drainage, the utilities, everything that goes into creating an aesthetically pleasing street,
You failed. It's not aesthetically pleasing. I'm sorry, it's not.
It's not finished.
It's not, regardless, it's commercial.
in that case, I apologize to the town for our failure. However, but what we're hoping to do is that
Can
we
you
have
finish
always...
that sentence though, because I think what you're getting ready to say is the concern of many people in this room.
Yeah.
That what we're gonna see as a presentation, you guys are gonna start, and it's not gonna end up that way because of what you find.
Not
So
necessarily.
can you finish the statement you started?
When you get into a project, and I can only speak for myself as a design professional, there are certain contingencies that have to be met. Okay? I'll give you an example because I'm the one that designed the park. Okay? When we started with the park and the project and the monies that were allotted for the design services that needed to be done, there was a major drainage problem in that park. And so in order to resolve the drainage problem, the water had to discharge somewhere. You have agencies that do not allow certain things to happen, like some people think that can still happen. So we could not just discharge where we wanted to, and we had to create infiltration swells in the park in order to collect what used to collect in the center of the park. That, in my mind, is a contingency that, unfortunately, as a design professional, I have to make tough decisions sometimes. And, you know, keeping the center of the park dry and usable and plausible for most of the citizens, you know, seemed like the right direction, and it seems that people have been pleased with the parks for the most part. Phase 2 is still under construction. I was the one that was involved with some of the preliminary design concepts for the Phase 2. The contingencies that came into play during the construction documents, you know, those were out of my control. So, but what I'm here tonight to talk about is Phase 3 and where we go from here. Is there any more questions in regarding Phase 2 that maybe I can help with?
Have we gained or lost parking on either of these?
I'm going to get to that in just a minute. All right? So what we're looking at is what is actually out there right now. You know, the existing curb line, as you can see, and Bob was talking about earlier, is dilapidated. It's got some, you know, it's in need of some repairs. You have a 100-foot right-of-way, and, you know, in that right-of-way and the opportunity for putting the trail in, you have that, the possibility of either widening or reducing, but what we want to do is to keep the same alignment. We do not want to offend the integrity of the streetscape. And then, of course, in the commercial area. For best of my knowledge, for the past half a century, this is the way people have been parking here. You know, is that, in your opinion, as citizens of Cape Charles, part of Cape Charles? If it is, let's retain that. If it's not, let's figure out an alternative for how we can get that space to work out better for this trail project. When you're looking along the street, this part here is the park, and we are actually looking south down the sidewalk, and that's the part of the park trail that extends out. The master plan that was originally done, the alignment that you see on this edge here, is what the master plan intended that alignment to be. So what that would mean is that this side here would basically widen out and become part of the trail to go down either side of Peach Street. Then, of course, the median, as you see in this part of this image here, there's no curb and gutter. There's nothing there to formalize it. You have a bituminous material that, because of your condition and your environment here, that bituminous material, asphalt, for those that don't understand what I just said, that it shrinks and swells. Then you have freeze and thaw. So that's why you end up with some of these streets that end up cracked or dilapidated. VDOT, since this road was put in, has updated their road standards. So this, and I have not done any boring, so don't throw rocks at me yet. But this right here, I suspect, according to today's standards, is substandard. But it may be possible to mill, to overlay, and to make that happen, and to get a better quality condition for your road. As you see here, this is the two opposite sides of Peach, and how it is that we are connecting, or where the possibility for the master plan, where that connection could be made, is flexible. You've got two alternatives in front of you here that toy with two different ideas. We have conditions with some of the trees that are along South Peach Street. Okay? This here is an old oak. Wonderful tree in and of itself. Been there for a very long time. And it hasn't met complete maturity yet. You can see the base of it there and the condition of what it can do, and on other projects that I've been a part of, what it does do to not only the curb but to the sidewalk and what could happen. Now, the two trees that you have that are right here, they are oaks as well. So, the question that we have for you today is, do we want to allow the potential of this situation to evolve on South Beach?
Yes.
Sorry. Being a person that has trees on two sides of my property, that is probably a town issue, because when it comes to the trees need to be trimmed, either because of power lines or they're now over my house, the town's like, oh, that's a VDOT issue, that's not our problem. But if I want to cut it down, then the town was like, oh, hell no, that's my tree. So, I'll be honest, like, you're going to have a lot of contention when it comes to
I do work with a lot of different towns, and I do understand that there's a lot of stuff that I'm not privy to. I'm not going to pretend to be, but all I'm doing is, as a designer, is I am making observations. Okay? This is not intended to offend, hurt, or harm anyone. What is
understandably, but there's a couple things that you're going to step into a hornet's nest.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
So fair warning.
Unfortunately, because of the charge that I have to step into the hornet's nest. And there's nothing I can do about it. But the question is that you'll see that this particular tree and several other trees along Peach, that the utility company has come along and cut a nice big V into the top of this tree. And there's been these power lines that just swoop through the center of the tree. Is that a view that you want to have, one for yourself, and you want visitors to your town to have? I'm not saying either way. That's your decision to make. We also have other trees that are on there that have large cavities and that are rotten. We have a tree that's obviously been impacted by a storm that's leaning. For all intentional purposes, I looked at the tree, and it may continue to live and thrive as it continues to go. But again, we're looking at, what is the pattern and the integrity of that pattern from a historical standpoint do we want peach to represent? That's all that I'm getting at. All right? Then we have the dilapidated areas of some of the concrete. I understand that this is a vacant lot that's zone commercial. This is a commercial area as well. And there's an area where somebody said, darn it, I want some plants on my streetscape, and decided that they were going to put a lot of plants in this area. And, it ended up being what it ended up being. So, now, this is one alternative one. All right? What we're looking for when it comes to the three zones that we have here. We have the commercial zone, okay? I'm going to get barked at here in a minute. We have a residential zone, and then we have what I'm terming for my own self in the design exercise, the transitional zone. Now, the transitional zone, and the way that I perceive it, is only because of its proximity to one of the main focal points of your town, which is Central Park. And it was in the master plan deemed to be a gateway into the park in its nature and in its presentation throughout the whole area. So, we'll take a little bit closer look at those in a minute. But in the commercial zone, and these are just thoughts about some of the stuff that I've been involved with. You guys are going to come up with a lot more. Okay? Y'all gonna get me to where I need to be to know exactly what it is that you want. But, passive activity. You might have a couple of benches out there, or you may have the old fire station that somebody decides to buy it. I noticed it was for sale. And it becomes an attribute to your town for visitors that would come in and would help you with some of your economics and, for tourism and those types of things. That's a possibility. That's something you want. Get it on the paper. Social gathering, collection. Where people might collect because of close proximity to where they may have parking or may not have parking. This particular concept here, or alternative, is toying with the idea, because we're introducing golf carts into your town, where we're going to park them. Because the spatial parking requirement for a golf cart is quite different than it is for a standard automobile. But it is also quite different for compact cars. So, is there a possibility that there's some golf cart parking that gets integrated and some compact cars? I'm going to blow this up so you don't have to split it. All right? But I'm just mentioning what the zones are. The rest of it is, it's a sense of destination in the commercial zone. Historically, for small towns, and your commercial core has always been a draw historically. Because you're over here on the Eastern Shore, and because I've been over here many, many times, your town and your downtown is your draw. That's where you conduct the majority of your business within town. So a sense of destination, and then also a sense of arrival for people who are coming to visit the town. Once they get on Mason up to South Beach, right now that can serve as your sense of arrival. And depending on how it gets transformed, will give that impression. In the residential zone, the one thing that I think that is needed over everything else is privacy. I don't believe that anybody in the residential zone needs a bunch of people, hopscotching through there all the time, ringing their bells on their bicycle, and, making a bunch of clutter. Okay? There are ways to deal with that. And one of the ways that I deal with it on projects is I use CPTED. It's Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, which basically means that you utilize territorial reinforcement to where when people walk through there, they understand that's not theirs. And it's not done in a rude way, but it's done in a very subtle way with different types of low plantings and different types of spatial setbacks. To where whenever an individual walks through the space, they understand common. I use this example. How many of you have ever walked into a church and just decided that you were just going to start shouting and yelling and making all kinds of a fuss? No, because you have respect for it, right? And that's what I intend for this design to do in the residential block, is to instill in respect that this is just a passive thoroughfare for those individuals who are coming to utilize the trail to access a potential event that may be in the park. Neighborhood standards and how it is that you would be able to potentially utilize some of these principles that are going to be very specific to this residential block in other blocks of your town where there's residential usage. It doesn't have to be complicated. And we're not building rockets here. This is actually what I do, and I've seen it work time and time again. So, somebody had a question.
How many people do you expect to walk through? I mean, I live on the street, I don't see that many people walking by. I don't think we have that kind of problem right now.
Well, what's the population of the town?
1,000 full-time during the busiest busiest weekends in the summer, you might hit 4,000 full-time.
Okay. All right. So you're looking at, if you take that number and you go about 5% during an event time, then you have to think about what time that event starts. You know, are you going to have, you know, a big group like this that's just jetting down your sidewalk to go to an event at one particular time? More than likely not. What you're going to have is small groups of families. You know, you might have a family of 4 or 6 that might be teamed up with another family, so at most you could end up with a group of, say, 12 to 15 that might just be passively walking through there. But again, when you get into the details of how that block is put together, it's going to help them to have a little bit more respect for what it is that they're, you know, they're basically in somebody's front yard, so they have to, the design needs to be able to have them respond to that. Yes, ma'am?
So I'm confused. We're trying to create a gateway for people to get from wherever into the park, but we want them to intrinsically understand that we have an entrance, a quiet church-like atmosphere, and a transitional, here's where the park starts.
No, there are design principles that can be there are some design principles that can be put into place to help that. But I want to reiterate.
Just a quick observation. I think there are some of us in this room who kind of like the fact that we live in a town that is walkable and people walk by our house and ring their bike bells, which you just said you're trying to discourage, and we kind of like that, right?
I agree.
Private. Okay. What I'm seeing, look. What I need you to, I need to reiterate here, okay? This is a beginning, okay? This is not the final solution for what we're doing. What I'm going to get from you guys here in a little bit is what I'm going to utilize to put together the final solution. So if you want somebody to go by the front of a property, ringing the bike bell, write it on there. Say, I want that. And that way, that would help me understand what it is collectively you guys are looking for, okay? But the intention, these are just some of my professional ideas about what to do to help you get some understanding. The transitional zone, okay? The active recreation is in the park, but you also have passive recreation. Yes, ma'am?
Sorry. So what is the budget for this phase is my first question. And does all of that budget have to be spent only on these 2.5 lots?
The budget's approximately $1 million.
Total or what the town is paying? The town has budgeted, I think, $562,000 $2,000 line item for capital improvements in the TIER's budget?
Yeah, it's done by fiscal year. The total project is estimated at $1 million
For this phase,
for this
just
phase.
this side of Peach Street.
Correct. Okay, the match is, okay, let me go back through it again, what I said in my introductory remarks. I didn't give you the dozen for phase 3. Phase 1 with the master planning was $1.2 million total. 80% federal, 20% town. Phase 2 is $2 million, again, 80% federal, 20% town. We're estimating this right now at $1 million. And again, it would be 80%, 20%, 200. When it is not necessarily all budgeted in the same fiscal year. The town budgets money for expenditures in that fiscal year, even for capital projects. So we have reserved in the grant $800,000 right now. There's an amount in this fiscal year's budget for the town to complete phase 2 and do the planning, including what you're doing today for phase 3.
How much
Should the budget, so we all give our ideas today, we come up with a grand plan that everybody's happy with, and that budget only be $200,000.
Then you have money reserved
Do we
for
lose the
phase
grant
4.
money, or
No.
can that money be used
No,
somewhere else
grant-
in town?
It can be used for subsequent phases.
Yes,
And when does the grant expire?
Does not.
Is this basic plan, $1 million is basically streetscape?
that is what I just heard, Bob.
Well, it's streetscape, and it's also to provide an alternate method of transportation, a safe method of transportation, non-motorized throughout the town. Just so let me just digress a little bit. You may not know, but bike riding is not allowed on sidewalks in the town. There's a town ordinance that prohibits that. So now people do it. The police don't enforce it, but they could. In particular, in Peach Street, it's a very narrow street in South Beach. If there are cars parked there, if there are bikers coming down the rest of that roadway, it's very difficult to see. This gives them a safe method of traversing that particular piece of geography. So it's a combination of transit, non-motorized transit, as well as streetscape.
So you're changing the law? Because it's still a sidewalk, right?
The law, the council has changed the law, not changed the law, the council has put a provision in the law that bicycles and other non-motorized vehicles are allowed on the Cape Charles Community Trail.
So what are you gonna do to keep the golf carts from driving down the trail, or the sidewalks?
They're
Like
not
they
allowed,
currently
and
do?
we're posting them.
How is that gonna be?
We're getting off topic. We're getting off topic here.
If I might just quickly interject that, when we get into the detail of things, right now, we're thinking comprehensively for what you want it to be. But when we get into the details of things, there's means and ways to discourage the golf cart from even physically being able to get onto the trail.
Bollards.
Bollards. Yeah. Which we actually have one that was in the image earlier. But anyways, again, what we're talking about is we're stepping into trying to get from you guys what you would like South Beach to become. This is a blow up of that section. This is the commercial area, and as I mentioned earlier, that, I'm questioning, is it feasible to even consider that we need somewhere to park golf carts or compact cars? Is it feasible to consider that we want to clean up the edges there and get those edges repaired properly? Is it feasible to think that, because there's an apron going in here, that this property over there can have an apron as well? So it starts to get some symmetry happening. These are all just questions that are going on in my mind. There's nothing final here. So, We're also looking at the possibility in this particular alternative of recessing into the verge a little bit to put some on-street parking there. I've been here a number of times where I've seen trucks with boats trying to make some turns and getting kind of jacked up in that area a little bit because of the way cars are parked. Do we want to formalize that, or do we want to leave it like it is? That's for you guys to tell me. The residential area here is basically utilizing a straight alignment for the sidewalk and being able to get the path wide enough to allow it. And this alternative is utilizing the same idea. Do we want to recess a little bit to allow parking so that you can get cars to go through there? Because I can tell you now that VDOT is not going to allow me to utilize the 15-foot standard that you have for on-street parking. So I'm going to have to address it some way. And I'm going to need you guys to guide me on how you want so that I can work with what they have from a regulation standpoint. The standard, just so you know, because somebody's got it in their head, standard drive aisles, 12 feet wide. Minimum can be 11. Okay? On-street parking has to be, it's usually a minimum of 8. But we were able to submit and get a waiver for North Beach to make it 7 and include the gutter pan. But again, that's details that we're going to get into later. All I need to know from you tonight is, do you want to account for continuing to have some on-street parking? And do you want what we're going to do, and that's one of those contingency things that was asked earlier by somebody, is what do you do when you get into the project and you just start making decisions yourself? I have to meet VDOT's regulations. That's the bottom line.
Is that because we're getting their money?
What's
Is
that?
that because we're using a grant?
Correct.
Okay. So we don't have
No,
to
we're
use
gonna
grant.
need that money.
Yeah, we don't have to, do not have to use the grant.
Yeah. Don't.
Well, no,
No, it's VDOT.
No,
We're in the VDOT right
that's
away.
not true. If the town decided to use their own money to build this project,
Just can't make up.
we're in the VDOT right away. The town, you have to understand, the town does not own the streets. The town does not own the sidewalks. If we do anything in the VDOT right away, it has to be done with VDOT standards.
I think his point was that we don't have to use it if we don't make any modifications at all, which is.
That is true. Well, I'm not gonna.
And is that an option to just not do any modifications on the residential section of Peach, or do you?
Correct, that's an option.
Okay.
I mean, again, if that, what you're looking for from a standpoint of working this exercise here in a few minutes, put that on there, Put it on there so I know it, and town council's gonna know it, and then we're gonna figure out where we're gonna go from there. What we're trying to do is to get from everybody a collective vision for what you want. All I'm doing is pushing buttons and getting you guys kind of stirred up a little bit so that you can put something on the paper.
This drawing, I can't really make out what it is. What's happening there? What have we lost and we gained?
Okay, well, this was this was the commercial area. This is the residential block, and I'm going to go to the next one, which is
like
going to
the bouquet of flowers. I can't really tell. Like, has anything been changed at all from what it is now?
I can no longer park in front of my house.
that. No, in this one, yes. In this alternative, you can't.
Excuse me, as I understand it, these are some things to look at, to provoke discussion.
Yes.
I think we're discussing.
And as opposed to saying, this is exactly what the designer is saying. What's wrong with this? How do we change it? That's what we are here.
We just want to know what it is we're seeing, George. We can't. It looks like a lot of flowers in the middle, but it doesn't say what it is.
Yeah, I got it.
Because right now, what we're looking at right here, these three are large, potentially shade trees. The circles that you see here are the existing crepe myrtles that you have in your median. And then, of course, he answered the question himself, potential flower beds or some type of shrub bed. We are at a very loose stage of how we're developing these things. And so right now, this is symbolism.
Okay, and so,
Being able to understand
to
what-
answer the question, is there, in this particular version, is there any parking on either side of the street?
Yes, I showed that a moment ago. We're right here,
Right.
there's on-street parking, on-street parking, on-street parking, on-street parking. And basically what this did is it took from my understanding of what VDOT would allow, wouldn't allow, and I played with the idea of what that alignment will be. That does not mean that alignment is fixed at all.
Okay, is this exactly, wait, does that answer the question, first of all?
But those are the same sidewalks that we have now.
These sidewalks here are both 8 feet wide.
So they're not.
No. The alignment of the edge that you have here is the same.
So the sidewalk will extend closer to the street, is that what I'm hearing?
Say that again?
The sidewalk will extend closer to the street or just closer to your house?
Well, the 100-foot right-of-way, and hopefully I don't stir up the hornet's nest with this one, but the 100-foot right-of-way does not have the back of the sidewalk on the residential side on the property line.
I'm not arguing that, I'm just trying to figure out which way you're extending the sidewalk.
Well, let me get down here for just a minute. We'll go to this one. Right here, there is a utility pole that's right here. From the back edge of that utility pole to the property line, you have roughly 9 to 10 feet. If you were to decide yourself collectively that you wanted to put an 8-foot wide path through there, it would fit. Which means that what would happen is that the edge of that sidewalk would go towards that property line.
Towards the house?
Around the house.
No, okay, that's.
That's on this particular way. But again, remember, these are not in stone. These are just,
Let me ask,
yes, sir.
A1, North Peach Street means you're gonna use what was done already in North Peach Street and apply it to South Peach Street, is that why it says North Peach Street on your chart?
That is my mistake as far as the typo.
Okay, good. Oh, thank you, okay.
I
I for 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the residential?
Damn, that's
I
on the
think,
chart. I'm sorry.
no, I just think,
I did not catch that, my bad.
I think just following up on that question, I think I just want to know, I'm not critiquing, I'm just asking, it appears to me that, is it true that all of the trees on both sides of the sidewalk, those are all new, that everything that was there is gone and replaced, because that looks very ordered?
Exactly, and that's what I'm doing, exactly, and that's what I'm doing in these two alternatives. I intentionally.
Wait, let him talk, you can't hear it.
I intentionally put things in these two alternatives to raise questions, which obviously it's working. So what I need is for us to get into these groups as soon as I get through this, and you guys can start banging out what your thoughts are with your neighbors to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
What I'd like to suggest, we're running out, we're using a lot of time here, and I think that the object is to get as much input from everybody as to what should be done, as to what is desired to be done. And so what I'd like to do is to ask him to complete the presentation, to just give you an overview of the two possibilities, and then let's get some input onto these things, because I mean, I see things there that I don't care for particularly. So I'd like to get this to the point where we're getting input on the drawings, and
I just think it'd be helpful with each one if he could just.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I just think it'd be helpful with each one if he could just spell out things like that, because that's not readily apparent to everyone in the room. So it's just to say, like in this one, for example, you know, the old trees have been taken down the sides, and instead we've got these new trees. The center, we've left it the way it was with the great myrtles, and now we've got, you know, just, you know, there was a few.
I think that's, can you do that?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's a good idea.
This one here removed all of the trees that I deemed to be somewhat dilapidated, and it put it in restructure and it put on street parking.
Wait, can you go, wait, go back. On the upper side of that graphic, the trees, that's not how the trees are now. So you've taken out all of the trees.
These here?
Yes, all of those trees have come out and you've planted new trees. The new sidewalk then goes up to,
Steps.
according to that, it goes up to your house. Your steps aren't even shown on there. If you look at the south side, or the western or eastern side, You can see your steps in front of each of your houses.
Yeah.
The other side, we no longer have steps.
Let me just make one point. These concepts, as Bill said, are conceptual in nature. They were done before we
I
had this.
understand that, but you have to be clear on what you're actually looking
that's what
at as
we're-
a concept. And as a concept, there's no stairs there anymore for the people on that, there's no front yard at all.
Right,
Correct.
there's no front yard.
And all of those trees any trees that were there are gone and being replanted with new trees. So,
Okay.
I agree
These
that
are
vagueness,
not-
but there's.
I'm gonna say it one last time, okay? These are just to get you guys to engage with one another.
We have all decided this is out.
And that's great.
We saved a lot of time. Half hour. Let's go to the next one.
That was that.
Alternative two.
I'm not here to defend you.
Let's sell that. I wanna get this moving.
These are just some thoughts to get you guys talking and figuring some stuff out. What this one here is doing is the possibility of rather not the end of South Beach here, how that transition can become a gateway into the park. You know? Do we want to allow the potential for some vending to go on during the event in that area as it has been utilized in the past? Is this an opportunity to how we want to think about, you know, we got to deal with some imperviousness, and we got to interject some additional imperviousness in order to keep our drainage counts and all that stuff to work, right? So is it logical to think that maybe we can use what's called a turf pave, which allows the grass to come through all the time you see it, it looks like it's a lawn, but you can park cars there periodically without rutting it and creating, you know, mud holes. That's, you know, one of the questions that you guys can talk about. The condition to the west and the east is consistent with the statement that I made earlier. And this is a possibility of what an elevation could look like and how that particular alternative, should we move towards it, come. Now, you can take each one of these alternatives and you can mix, match different elements from each one. So I'm going to try to run through this one real quick. And you have all of what's up here right in front of you on the table, by the way. So on this one here, we're looking at the idea of making the commercial area standard parking. Unfortunately, because of the spatial constraint that you have there, you're going to have to do some diagonal parking. I've noticed that the town has experimented with different types of parking in the town. This particular alignment is conducive to the spatial constraints that you have for this area and how it is that you can make it more aesthetically pleasing. Now, in this particular commercial block, right now, you have one, this is Mason here, north is this way. There's one tree currently, I think it's 7 over here, that has, you know, it needs help. But so the trees to the east and to the west on this are proposed as new. These trees in the center are as a focal point. And whether or not we want those or not. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. When you get into the commercial, the residential block, and again, I apologize, this is still South Beach, and that's my typo, I accept responsibility for it. But we're looking at this potential of this trail going down the median, and not being on either side, which means that you would keep the existing condition of what you have, the way that it would be, and the only thing that would be developed would be the median. I wrestle with, the feasibility of how that can be done and how people move. Because I do engineering and I do design work and I do, public projects all the time. I have an understanding of how people move. And a lot of times people don't want to cross the road, to cross the sidewalk, get across the bend and cross back in order to keep to where they're going to go. They will go from there straight across. DNOT will not allow that to happen. They will not allow that crosswalk to take place right here. This is what will need to happen. So that's something to take into consideration. So we have to look at understanding how that evaluation is.
Just out of curiosity, why don't they allow
All of the trees that you see here that are the green, the solid green olive color, are the existing trees that you have. And these are just trees that have been, in my mindset, just some filler trees to kind of flush things out a little bit. But they're not in stone. They can, it can be mixed, matched, and moved. So, somebody had a question? No more questions?
I didn't. I was just curious, why doesn't VDOT allow the crosswalks to be through the median? I mean, however you said it, instead of having the crossover from the sidewalk to the median, why can't they have it?
I got to put a contingency in front of this. They would be better to answer it specifically.
Oh, okay.
But from a safety standpoint of what you have is you have basically an ingress and egress travel lane on either side, okay? Most of the time, this applies to urban conditions. People don't pay attention. People get hit. Around Cape Charles, I haven't seen too many mischievous drivers, but maybe there are some. The main thing is keeping the pedestrians safe, because most people who utilize trails, pathways, okay, especially if they're like me,
Right.
they don't pay attention either.
Right.
So we don't want anybody to get hurt. And my prime responsibility is for the health, safety, and welfare of not only you as a community, but anybody who would visit this town.
I have a question.
So parking will stay the same?
This here, basically, what you see here is this curb line, is your existing curb line, and your existing curb line condition.
There was a gentleman over here, there's a lady in the back, and here in the front. Go ahead. You were.
My question on the commercial block with the parking, what is the width of that parking area that you have established there?
You have approximately existing around 20 feet, okay? And it's on this survey that's right here. You've got between 20 and 24. Now, because this is not a construction drawing, this is a concept alternative, it was done over top of an area, all right? I just got this physical survey 2 days ago, okay? Have only had about 6 hours to kind of look to see what we're really working with, and it has not been completely finalized yet. But you have, may I have that scale right there? What you have on here from you have 22 feet from you have, looks like 31 feet.
So that's the total lane width on one side, or the total width?
I believe you were asking about the median?
I'm talking about the median, and you said it's 20 feet wide.
Okay, but I just measured it, it's closer to around 30.
Is there
On the
Closer
physical,
to what?
30 feet, the median.
Okay, here's my question. If you put a 12-foot berm down the middle of that 30 feet and have parallel parking going south and going north.
I see
So
what you're
you
doing.
get more
Here,
parking,
okay.
you get a total of more parking
I got
spots.
you. I got you. I think I understand what your question is. You're saying that instead of doing angle parking,
Yes.
you basically do on-street parking,
Yes.
parallel.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Standards for parallel parking. You have to maintain a 12-foot wide drive aisle. They do not allow, unless you like set something in, to go much narrower than that. Plus you have to have a 2-foot wide gutter pad. And the reason being is the way people parallel park. You know, they pull up and they make their left turn and they go back in. So, because if these two lanes were side by side, we would not have any issues. But because this existing travel lane is approximately 15 feet, or the 15 feet that you have that's right there, it causes it to be in question when you put that gutter pan in. But what you would end up doing when you do parallel parking, even if you did it on both sides, you're going to lose some of what you currently have. Your parking count's going to change a little bit. But again, if that is something that people want, would rather explore parallel parking and putting it there, and transforming the way that it's been visually experienced previously, then that's definitely something I'm willing to explore.
Is there an option, I don't know how those measurements are, is there an option to narrow, I think Bob told me it's called the verge, that grassy strip on the top of that picture where those 4 trees are?
Right
Above,
here.
not that one, above, between the curb and the house. Can that be narrowed and still allow on-street parking as well as the diagonal parking?
Are you talking about right here?
Can you narrow that grass strip wherever your finger is?
The grass.
With the sidewalk.
Is that an
The
option?
verge.
The verge.
Oh, yes.
That's what I started.
Can it be narrowed?
Yes.
In
In order to also to allow all tons of parking. To have, so we can have the, basically like we have
Okay.
now.
All right.
So we have the street parking.
All right, engineering 101 and spatial layouts, okay? A standard parking lot is 60 feet wide. A standard parking space is a 9 by 18. So, if you're asking me if you could put a Walmart parking lot right here, the answer is yes. Between property line to property line, that
No.
entire area could be a parking
No,
lot.
I'm just asking whether you could narrow, I'm asking whether you keep the center exactly as you have it pictured, more or less.
Right?
But then narrow the verge and also have parallel street parking.
Yes. Yes, and if that is something that you want to have us explore, then we want to get that on these papers here.
Tammy, you have a question?
I have a comment for all the town representatives here. We keep talking about VDOT standards, VDOT standards. There shouldn't have been a VDOT representative here today that could defend the standards.
Well,
Just a comment.
on the first one, the first one is A2, where's the train?
Here,
On the previous slide.
on the previous slide,
Yes, where's the train?
the trail is taking the commercial and the commercial
So it's on the side.
on the 2 edges, yes.
And it's
To the east and to the west. Yes.
It already is. So, there was a question.
What do you mean it's taken already?
Yeah,
In the blue.
when the trail goes down the middle of the median,
Speak up, please.
when the trail goes down the middle of the median in part 2, is that what you had it, is in the median?
Correct. That is something that.
It's a possibility,
That's
yes.
generated from the town and, you know, the
But
thought.
we would still have sidewalks.
It'll fit. Say that again?
There would still be regular sidewalks.
Yes.
Correct.
So there's no, wouldn't people naturally just walk down the sidewalk instead of transferring to the median,
Yes.
coming off the median, going back to the median, coming off the
Absolutely.
median?
Or just walking the street. So we don't need more pavement.
We don't need more
Yes. And, I'm not trying to get from under the heat of anything, but, some of what I've heard also from some of your neighbors and people in the town, I put that in here too. So, this is just a way to get you guys talking about what it is that you want Southeast to be. Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
may just say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
The pictures are pretty and everything looks great. At the end of the day, even though we're giving you all of your suggestions and everything, we would like to have stayed as original, like your view of Great Myrtles. At the end of the day, is this all going to fall back to the fact, well, we wanted to do that for you, but VDOT won't let us? And I feel like we're just kind of getting taken to the slaughterhouse on this.
Well, hopefully you can appreciate that I have my integrity from a design standpoint is that I love everything to be above board.
VDOT standards for planting in the right of way are embedded in the town zoning ordinance. There are no problem with crepe myrtles. You can put crepe myrtles in the right of way. You can put crepe myrtles under power lines in the right of way. What VDOT does not allow in power lines are things like white oaks. So if you went to VDOT and tried to get a permit for planting a white oak in a power line, they would deny it under a power line. In fact, it's not allowed by the town zoning ordinance.
Well, I'm not worried about putting in a crepe myrtle. I'm worried about the ones that have been there for years.
If you want the crepe myrtles, they'll stay.
In the median. And then all of a sudden, it's not gonna go, oh, the curb and gutter restrictions are this, and so now it has to be that. That's what I'm saying. I just wanna be things that we're protecting.
Okay, when you get to looking at the trees that are here, the ones that are in the median, the only ones that are not shown on here, all of them are shown on this survey, once we get to working. All of the trees, the only trees that I have removed out are the ones that present a safety,
And I understand.
a safety hazard. I don't know who is next.
So speaking of the safety hazard, on all of these elevations, the power lines remain.
Correct. We're not relocating any utilities.
Why? If we're ripping up our entire street, why would we not?
I agree.
That is one of the things that we've done in the town, and what we have to take into consideration is the financial constraints of what it costs to do that.
So that's
I
an
have not-
option that we cannot, you said everything's on the table. And I just want to, when everything is on the table, is that an everything or is that?
Yes, in my mind it is, but the thing is that the current budget that you have will not be able to support it.
I just heard that Craig Merles could stay, but if you put a median down the center, I mean a sidewalk down the center, there's several Craig Merles right in the center of.
Okay, well, hang on, we're here at this next slide, okay? And what I was getting at here is that in this particular concept, all of the crepe myrtles, except for the ones that were damaged, that would need to go out, they either had rot or there was some issue with them, remain, okay? However, because, this alignment for this trail is something that came from within the town itself. Hey, why don't we put the trail down the median? Is that what you want? In order to do that, in order to get this trail to work and come down through there, the possibility is that the 3 crepe myrtles that are in this particular block here may need to be relocated, or not relocated, be removed,
Well,
and reinstitute additional ones there. But that, I'm not here saying, hey, take out these things. What I'm here is for you guys to get going and working in these groups and putting your thoughts on some of these papers so that when we get a master plan, we can come back and then you guys can, we can modify and adjust with what we need to have.
So, I'm Joe Fair. I live on Peach Street in the residential section. I'm also the chairman of the Historic District Review Board, and I'm not speaking for that board. But when we bought our house in 2011, we moved in full-time in 2012. We have spent 5 years restoring our house. I have great concern for the work, any major work that's done on the residential section of Peach Street, because I can't speak for my neighbors, but I retained all the original plaster in our house.
Bravo.
Okay, thank you. I spent 4 years doing that. You start running heavy equipment up and down these streets, and you start tamping dirt, and you start excavating stuff. What I want to know is, who is responsible for the plaster damage that I know my house will incur? Because the house, and most of these homes on Peach Street do not sit on a foundation. They sit on a bed of oyster shells with brick. So like the road surfaces you were talking about moving, our homes also move with the season. It's just happened. We've had, when VDOT replaced sidewalks in front of our house, and just the fact that they were pulling up concrete, and as they would catch a section of sidewalk and they pull it up and it flopped back down, I've had to go back in and repair cracks in the plaster. So I'm telling this, I want the council members here to hear this too, because we bought on this block because we like the streetscape. We obviously fell in love with the old house. We took a house that, I'm sorry, there's no such thing as a dilapidated tree. There are dilapidated homes. We took a home that was semi-dilapidated and it spent well over $100,000. I just want to know who would be responsible for restoring my house if the most egregious of these plans is exercised by the town or VDOT or whoever. Because I think for all of us that live on Peach Street, this is what makes this street special. All these concerns that security and, you know, big gobs of people walking up and down, people bicycle riding. My wife and I know our neighbors, we sit on our front porches. We're in the tourist season. We sit there, 4th of July weekend, the busiest weekend of the year. We don't have that kind of traffic on Peach Street. We don't have vehicular traffic. We don't have foot traffic. We don't have bike traffic. We don't have golf cart traffic. All that stuff is down at the Bayside, Bay Avenue. We just don't get it. All these arguments that you've laid out for the whole concept of this plan, in my opinion, are just bogus. We just don't get that kind of human traffic on that street. It just doesn't happen. Maybe in 100 years that might be an issue, but we just don't see it. It just doesn't happen. Anyway, that's.
I have a question.
Well,
I want to address your concern.
Okay, thank you.
He has a very valid concern, because a lot of times when you get heavy equipment, you have a lot of things that happen on the site. I have worked on historic preservation projects, and if those are concerns and issues, and I'm going to continue to be redundant, but I need those things on these papers, because if you've got a historic structure, okay, that has that plaster in there, then when I put together,
it's every house.
Let the man finish. I want to hear.
I have an appreciation for history, and especially architecture, because I am an architect. When it comes to putting together the drawings, I have the ability to tell the contractor what he can and cannot do and how he can perform it, and what measures he can use in order to do different installations. I'll give you an example of a historic project, Fort Nonsense in Matthews County. These are old Civil War historic fortifications. Contractors wanted to come in there with bobcats and bulldozers. No. It all had to be excavated by hand.
Which drives up the cost.
And so what I'm saying is that we're getting a little off track with concerning ourselves about that. What I need to know from you guys is what we want South Peach to evolve into.
I think what you're hearing is what it is.
I've got one more thing. Just for clarity. So I am the chair of the Historic District Review Board, but I also have 25 years of experience owning and working at historic restoration projects on the Lower Shore of Maryland, Accomack County, Virginia, Annapolis, and Baltimore. So this is a big concern. It's been a big concern for every project I've done. I've said my piece.
Okay. Well, we had someone over here who's
That's right. And I just wanted to kind of summarize what I'm hearing and ask the question. What I'm hearing, I think I hear, is we don't want the residential block of Peach Street changed in any way.
Absolutely.
So, my question is, do we have to change it?
No.
That's what I asked.
Okay, so if we don't have to
And
change
I think
it,
you have to be clear. The residential block can't transition to that.
Let me just say something. Some of these questions you're asking, Bill, are not his to answer.
Yes.
If you have concerns like that, you're going to have to get with the town council, okay? That is not the purpose of this meeting, okay? We have to move along and we have to get the input on the design.
Can I just try perhaps to put a perspective for it, bridges both of these ideas, the ideas of having a trail and not.
It seems very obvious to me, you've got 3 sections of each street you're working with. Each street.
Well, we're,
You got the transitional, the residential, and the commercial. Each of those areas have their own parochial reasons why they like it or don't like it. It's very obvious that the residential is pretty well fixed. Everybody likes the way it is, the ambience of it and everything. The transitional, I hear very little complaint about.
Well, no,
no, I'm sorry.
We have many residences
in the
But we are residential.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't
Thank
mean to be
you.
like, but we're just as residential.
The purpose is based on the commercial. We don't talk about the commercial.
Please settle down so we can hear what he's saying.
So we don't talk about the commercial. I see what you have here for commercial, turn for the commercial movements down there. That area needs to be open. But if you close it up, you have blocked what I have in process, putting on the corner, Mason and Peach.
Okay, again, to answer your question, okay, I can tell you for myself that there's things in here that, I don't know that I would agree with or disagree with. These are intended to get what's happening, your mind's turning and thinking about ultimately what would you like to see happen with South Beach. I can tell you right now that neither one of these are going to be the final solution. What we are going to gather from your collective processes at each one of these groups, your thoughts on these papers about your likes and your dislikes. And that is going to transform into the master plan for hopefully your approval. Yes, ma'am.
I actually want to ask Bob a question. You had mentioned that some of these concerns we're bringing up should be in front of the council. When would we have an opportunity to do that before this gets too far gone? Or do we know?
You can do it at any council meeting.
We don't know when that is.
Yeah,
Email us.
okay. Is there a short site for like those?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right.
I think we're gonna need to have a work session on this with public comment. I don't wanna do this at a regular council meeting, there's too much other business going on. So I think we can do that.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
So I think we can do that, but I would want it at a work session where we have more time to focus on it.
Yeah, whatever would work best, just because I think what we want to address are things you can't hear, and that would be helpful.
If you go to the town website, you can contact all of us
Okay.
individually.
I was going to talk about the commercial block at some time.
Yeah,
Can I ask a specific question for him actually while he's here, specific to, sorry, guy's name?
Bill.
Bill. Is there, and before I go into, I think my first option personally would probably be to like leave the 2 blocks and just deal with the commercial block. If we must do something, if that's what town and everything moves forward to, is there a third option? The problem with the center median is, the center trail is it kind of is awkward to use, and we're putting cement down the middle of a beautiful median. The problem with doing the 2 sidewalks on both sides is that they're ripping out a lot of trees that everybody already likes, they're mature trees we already like. Bob was nice enough to spend a lot of time with me a couple months ago, walking around and giving me a sense of some of these stuff, some of the issues that you have to factor in, measuring speed out rules and stuff. And one thing I was wondering, is it a third option, and this is just my apologies to my neighbors happen to live on one side of the street or another and what they would want, but it appeared to me looking down the street that there's a lot more problems, a lot more mature trees on the, on Ned and Beth's side of Peach Street.
The east side.
The east side of the street, where there's light poles and a lot more trees. And on the west side, just looking straight down, I can almost see an 8-foot path from my house to the park. So is there a third option where if we had to do anything, and that's not my first choice, but if we were going to do something, is there a plan C where we would, instead of going down the middle, which is awkward and ruins the median, and instead of doing both sides and ripping out a bunch of trees, we go just down the one side and really don't rip out any trees, but we just add some cement?
You'd have to rip out trees, Aaron.
You're gonna cut the.
Well, hang on, I'm gonna answer his question. Yes, that's what we're here for tonight.
It's right into our moment.
I mean, that's the short answer. All right.
I have a question to you.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the input here, people are going to be writing things on there, can they also make some drawings on these drawings?
By all means.
So that might make life a little bit easier in terms of communicating than what these initials have.
Yes. I'm gonna show you a diagram here in a minute. Respectfully, we're crunching into time. I can stay here as long as you guys are willing to be here. I have no problem with that. But I do believe that what needs to happen is that some of these discussions that we're attempting to have during the presentation needs to be happening in individual groups. So that we can, and I will be moving around the room, and as will Carol and Bob, and be able to answer some questions and to get some types of comments. But what we're attempting to do is, this here, as I've already said, is, the idea is that the trail would go down the median. We would retain as many of the existing trees as possible in the residential block. However, because of alignment issues and/or somebody may say, well, let's keep those trees and just wiggle around them and get it through the median. Hey, if that's something you want us to explore, by all means, put that on the drawing. This is the potential of what an elevation would look like if you start to think about, how that could look. What's possible. All right? What's going to happen once I get all of you guys in putting together your thoughts? I'm going to go back, I'm going to make out what's the important parts of what you have to say. I'm going to compile all that, and I'm going to provide Bob the results, and I'm going to put together, more than likely because of some of the discussions been had, I'm probably going to do another preliminary schematic, just so we have something for you guys to tell me to tweak or adjust, because it may or may not work.
Yeah, Bill, commercial.
I just want one quick question. There's three distinct, they're not necessarily phases, but they're three distinct areas, right? Is there a cost breakdown of that million by phase, by each section?
We're intentionally not, we know what our budget is, okay, as far as what's currently available, because Bob disclosed that earlier.
There's no breakdown.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you didn't do 2/3 of it, then you had to pay for the 1/3 on your own. That's not that far off of paying 20% for the whole
No,
thing.
I don't know. We haven't done that.
Yeah. And, those types of, the question about, I think what I'm understanding or hearing, but I hope to see some of that on the drawings. I don't want to put words in anybody. Anyways, we need to get going with the workshop. And what I would like to have people do, and this is just an example here, okay? This does not impress upon you my actual thoughts. This is just an exhibit. But if you don't like something, put an X and put your initials by it. If you don't like an entire something, put a circle, put your initials by it. If there's something that you think potentially could have some merit, use the blue marker and indicate it as shown with a blue check and or a blue circle. If you have other thoughts that aren't here that you would like us to have and give some consideration to, by all means, share those on the drawings as well, preferably with the black Sharpie. Yes, ma'am.
So, just for clarity.
Red is something you don't want.
Correct. Red means no. Blue means yes.
And can you just tell us the depth of the medians that are drawn in here, like, what are they, the same size that they are currently?
Yes. Roughly right now, that these concepts that you see in front of you, everything is within the 100-foot right-of-way. Okay? The existing curb lines that you see, and I will show over here, pardon me. This curb line that you see right here and right here, aside from where it recesses into the verge to allow on-street parking, is your existing curb alignment. Okay? I did not say, let's move the curb 10 feet over here or whatever. I kept it. All I did is I stepped in to allow some on-street parking, just to get you guys to debate amongst yourselves whether or not you feel that that's feasible and whether or not it retains the historic integrity of what you want for South Beach. You know, the passive existing one that we have here for alternative 2 retains your existing curb line. However, I am proposing that wherever you currently either have dilapidated curbing and or no curb at all, just an asphalt edge, that we would get that edge cleaned up a little bit. But other than that, what you see in front of you is maintaining the original historical intent of what that street pattern is supposed to be.
Thank you.
They're not ready to start, you know, in one show,
No, we've already asked all the questions, so.
The commercial block is all about angled parking versus not. Is that all that we have to talk about a commercial block?
Well, the question I think that you know, that I've been asking myself from a design standpoint is, you know, the need for parking. You know, what that count may be. You know, right now what you have there does not need a standard. People just come and just kind of park where they want. So my question to you guys is, do you want, you know, VDOT's going to require me to somehow control that situation. And it's either going to be with striping, it's going to be with curving, or it's going to be with plants. Those are more than likely going to be what the options are.
It is. Can I ask a question here? How many people here are business owners that have businesses on Strawberry Street? There you go. Strawberry?
No, peach.
Peach? Yes.
You mean in the business district? The business district.
How about how many folks live? There's some that are not.
Good question. How many people live on Peach? Or have a business?
I want to.
So we have a few people here that are interested, but
Yes, that's the one if you like something.
to your point,
Or you know, if you want to interject.
do you need more
Or if
discussion?
you've got an idea that you like, you can use that one too.
Can I just ask one question that maybe, I do have a question about, is there a way to bridge a lot of the resistance against doing anything with the concept of the master trail? Because one thing you said was like, you know, it's one thing you start with a master plan, and then you get into the weeds of it, and sometimes that's a change a little bit, you know, right?
Right.
Is there any reason, and I speak as a cyclist, I went out to one time in town, I put my car away, and I bike everywhere, I walk everywhere. And so a lot of the master trail that's been done is great because it's connected and lets me ride, you know, from the beach all the way down to side of town, all the way out to Aqua, and, you know, but once I'm in, the reality is, and I love what's been done in Central Park, but the reality is, if I'm biking from Mason Avenue over to the park, even if there's some kind of trail, whether it's in the center of the median or it's in the sidewalks, it doesn't actually do any good because I still have to cross the street. Like that's the main thing that a bike path creates is a sense of continuous safety, and I can just be on the bike path and I'm just having a good old time and not going to look for anything. But if it's just getting me 50 yards down, then I have to stop and look both ways and cross, and then I'm like, look further, and I got to stop both ways. It's not really giving me anything that I don't already have on what is a very quiet Peach Street block. I mean, I go biking down there, it is my bike path, as of right now. And so rather than looking at that as being a rejection of the master plan and the bike trail, can we look at that as just like, okay, now we're getting the weeds of it. On this block, because of the traffic we have, can't we just keep it there? I was personally still going to do something on the commercial block. I think it needs, the park needs to be fixed, it can be cleaned up. And I don't think that's inconsistent with everything else that has been done. I think the north end of the Peach needed something to be done. The south end of the Peach doesn't nearly need anything to be done.
Okay,
But
all of that you're talking about right now, put it on the paper.
I think Aaron speaks for us all.
Okay.
I have a question for Larry.
Hang on, I need to respond and these people.
my only idea, I just want to make sure candidates are certified a part of.
Okay, why we are where we are is one, because your community wanted a trail system to go around the perimeter of your town. Okay? That is where this project started. In order to do that, we went through these types of exercises with the citizens of Cape Charles to guide and direct how this gets done. The citizens of Cape Charles chose, once the master plan was done, that phase 1 of the master plan would be Central Park. They subsequently decided that phase 2 would be...
Bill, would you excuse me a minute, please? Bill is talking, please pay attention to him. We have a lot of conversations going on here. We're going to get to be able to have those conversations and put in the drawings in just a little bit. But Bill, if you could finish what you're saying.
And so where, the whole trail, it got put together. Citizens, your neighbors, maybe even some of you, was involved in the same kind of exercise we're experiencing here tonight. And we asked them some questions. Where do you want us to start? They decided Central Park would be the place to start. So, that's what we did, Central Park. They decided the next phase would be North Beach. Okay? They decided that phase 3 would be South Beach. This is where we're at now. Okay? So, if you have, some thoughts about what it can be, or how you want it to be responded to, by all means. That's what I'm here tonight to get.
Okay.
And that's what you will be able to provide.
Now, how much time do you want people to take for this?
Originally, in the agenda at the beginning, we were going to do 45 minutes to have each group work through, give their thoughts, put their comments on here. If I don't have any comments on these papers, I will not have anything to be able to respond to. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think that's not entirely the case, because somebody should be recording, it's being video recorded of everybody's comments that they said.
I'm hoping we could all work together.
So, but I'm saying you have comments. My second question is really from an engineering perspective. You've alluded several times in terms of some of these alternatives, we will then have more pavement. So what?
Say that again?
Some of these alternatives, we will have more pavement, more sidewalk, more trail. How does that affect the stormwater on South Peach Street? We know on North Peach Street, that project was delayed 200 days because of the stormwater issue. We don't have...
That's not true. It wasn't delayed because of the stormwater. Delayed because the contract was I'm saying it's a more complicated project. You should have been able to get it worked on.
Well, what is saying that that same issue, for which our side of Peach Street is similar, is not going to happen on the south side? Like, as conceptually, none of these show anything to do with stormwater.
Let me one of the things.
If everybody can listen up.
Bill, can you get us started working on the process of this question?
Stormwater management is a very important concern. As the project is developed, they will have to balance between impervious and impervious surface. Part of what they're doing is to extend the medians and some other pieces of the intersection, which would create some additional impervious surface. Whether the balance will be achieved, we don't know. If the balance doesn't get achieved, then we will have to put in some drop it, I assume they run it to someplace to discharge.
Which means an entire new stormwater infrastructure running down our current side of Peach Street.
Doesn't necessarily.
It could be that, is what I said. You're not an engineer to make that judgment right now.
It's true.
So,
I would seriously doubt it, but there are places where you can put it. They require nothing.
And at the end of the day, we can all sit here and make these suggestions and have all of these grand ideas, but at the end of the day, is it just going to be a closed door? Town council's going to make the decision regardless
The
of
town
what.
council makes no decisions in executive session, all open public session.
But in the end of the day, y'all decide is what y'all want to do, because I don't know who approved the other side of Peach Street, but it's hideous. And we want nothing
We
that
don't want the
resembles that
industrial look.
at all. And no disrespect, but this to me looks like something that would be in New York or DC or Disney World, not the historic town of Cape Charles. And maybe if you had gone around and actually spoken to the people and actually looked at our town, you would have never done that. It's awful.
Well,
It's awful.
beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that was done, that process was followed.
And it's not being maintained. The grass finally got cut. It looks awful. And that's, let's just put our notes down and pray they get rid
Let's
of it.
move on, please.
Does each group feel like they've had adequate time to put their major concerns on these diagrams? Yes, okay. Does each group have a spokesperson that can represent the group?
Yes.
Very good. Which group would like to start? Okay, let's go. Usually the way it works is a couple other people in the group hold up the display so the spokesperson can represent and speak to it. So there's a couple guys, grab one side. Whichever way. There we go. All right, we still on the camera. Very good. Okay, let's hear what our neighbors have to say.
I just found out seconds ago that I was the presenter, so I'm going to ask my team to,
Please settle down so we can hear Tammy, please.
The overall consensus is that we would like to focus the money that we have and the resources on the commercial district first as a primary, because that really does need the attention. We need the parking, and it fills the need of town overall. So that was the overall kind of consensus of that. That the residential and transitional housing, that we really don't need that much. Although I think the new name of transitional Tammy is going to stick. You know? But one of the things we did suggest is that these are 20-foot medians. If we could keep the trees and narrow them, trim them on either side, giving more room for the traffic to flow through, and whatever repair needs to happen on those curbs and things, because it does need to happen. And some places may need driveways to be, redone out of the project and doing that.
Excuse me, Tammy?
Yes.
I want to be clear on what you're saying. You're just saying trim the trees. You are not saying narrow the medians.
No, narrow the medians, which will not impact the trees that are, the crepe myrtles that are already there. Bring them in.
Narrow the median and...
The trees will be fine because they're in the middle.
Okay.
On these blocks.
They're not in the middle, but her intent is you can probably get a foot or so on, a foot or two on the side.
They're about this far off the road. Yeah.
So that's where the ruts are.
Just saying, I'm not in favor of narrowing the median.
Okay.
So that, okay.
The transitional section
of Peach is in support of that. I'm doing that, and the residential is not. I'm speaking for everybody. I'm just speaking for half of this. Okay. Trees are not pollinators. A mix of flowering perennials is necessary kind of through this area. If we're going to add flowers, that was written, maximize angle parking on commercial block. What was this? We would like the money to be spent on in-ground electric and utilities. That was the overall consensus of that.
Tammy,
Yes.
where's your 8-foot path? Are you gonna do it on the sidewalks, or you gonna do it in the middle? None.
Don't even do it.
But by VDOT, you've gotta do 8 feet.
No, that's not the case.
It isn't?
No, only if we were to do a community trail going through, would there need to be 8 foot.
So
If
you're
there's
doing
no
away
trail-
with the community trail.
Well, as Aaron says, we've got wonderful passage of bikes through here already.
What do we leave them to the sidewalks, leave them the same?
They've just replaced them.
On the residential or transitional, the commercial, just what's going to best impact and serve the businesses on that
Right.
area as well as the residents, as far as parking and flow of everything.
And VDOT will go along with that. Not with the grant.
These were just what we thought.
Not with the grant money. No, they won't with the grant money.
No, we're just saying the town can pay for this.
Yeah, town money.
Oh, I got you.
It won't be, that work will not be eligible.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
There you go.
We're all good at that.
Yes.
Okay.
If you can come around this way so that we can get right there.
Actually, you're better.
Oh, we got front?
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
All right, let's see. There was, before, one of the things ideas that came out of our group was actually, even before any work is done on the beach, we'd actually love to reprioritize the beach and just push the beach back. There was some talk from some of the group on that. Once the work happens on beach, we also would rather start with the commercial district, and our first choice is actually just to leave these two, the residential transitional blocks alone, except I'm sure some curb repair, but just leave them and really focus all the energy on the commercial district, which I'll come back to if, you know, because everyone's insisting that we have to finish this, connect this trail, we have to do something, you know, if we're gonna do something, I think we were all, most of us were pretty much in agreement that we would rather do the one idea of just doing the single 8-foot sidewalk walk along the west side of the beach. Trying to pick, you know, as far from the houses as we can and as close to, you know, saving trees. There does seem to be a fairly decent 8-foot path down that side. Back to the, you know, and then the fact that the commercial district, one thing is
Can I interrupt us just a second? How many people live on the west side of the beach?
And
Okay,
I
guess
vehemently say hell no to that.
Go ahead.
okay, again, this was if, this is, I mean, my first choice is to not do anything. Yeah. But not really, but, okay, the other thing we said is that, so within the commercial district, commercial block, any trees that are built there, I mean, might as well try to sort of have it look as much as possible like the other existing beach. That means crepe myrtles here, not like the trees that are on North Beach. And let's, oh yeah, there was an idea too, some people that, we have some people in our group that actually have commercial property here saying, this is more, this block really only has a residential at this end, it's more commercial at this end, and they were saying we can even not have trees at all here because they like it to be open here.
They have parking.
What's that?
Still have that
Parking.
angle parking.
Yeah, we like the angle parking with some kind of median, and then, you know, I actually live here, and I would also say that I'd be willing to even have a narrower verge if it means that we could have, maintain on the street, you know, parallel parking in addition to the diagonal parking. And I think when I walked out with Bob, there's actually a much wider verge on that side, so we could skip it over to the other side, you know, to make it kind of even. Certainly I'd love to keep as much verge as I can have.
But again, to reiterate the beginning of Aaron's speech, we would like to put forward the reprioritization of phase 3 of the community trail grant money to go back to what it was originally proposed to be, which was the beachfront. Staff recommendation, if I remember correctly, staff recommendation changed that to Peach Street being phase 3. So we would like the consideration to be phase 3 utilizing the community grant or community trail grant to be connecting the beachfront or FIG. Again, leave Peach Street alone with the grant money. Leave it alone. If you need to improve Peach, great, use town funds. But connect our perimeter. Oops, sorry. Connect our perimeter.
Thank you. One thing I will point out, the alternative layouts that are there, they were done over top of the area, okay? So I know that it's misleading with some of where the buildings are put on this, but if you look at the survey depicts where the property line is and where the steps are. The bottom of the steps on the east side of South Beach is the approximate location of where your property line is and where the property line should be represented on the concept drive. And you can see that very clearly.
But Bill is saying, to be clear, what Bill is saying, that this organization is not correct.
Right.
There's
You got your steps, and then it's the sidewalk.
What's that?
It's the sidewalk to steps. stepping off the sidewalk.
Yeah, you can see it very clearly right here. These are the
It's not a
houses.
sidewalk, it's a trail. Everybody bikes on it.
Want to see.
So, what if you don't have steps, like, how can you back up? We don't have steps. I'm just trying to get a feel.
Well, if and when we get into the
No,
point
we're talking
of how
about-
to
we're
respond
talking
to what's
about
there, it'll be within
west
what's
side.
like.
It's where you're signing.
Gotcha, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just I wanted to read this earlier, but I'm gonna read this now. So, as I mentioned, the Historic District Review Board, we're charged with maintaining the fabric of the historic district. We all live, most of us, for sure, not all of us, live in the historic district, right? Just Old Town Cape Charles. The purpose of this district, and I'm quoting Town of Cape Charles zoning ordinance, Article 8, Historic District Overlay. The purpose of this district is to provide for protection against destruction or encroachment upon historic areas, buildings, monuments, or other significant features. It is the purpose of this district to preserve and designate historic areas and historic landmarks and other historic or architectural features and their surroundings within a reasonable distance from destruction, damage, defacement, and obvious incongruous development. So this is the historic district, right? The way Peach Street is laid out, and I can't speak for the commercial side, but the way Randolph to the park, this was the intent of the original surveyors of the town of Cape Charles back in the 1890s. This was the way this town was laid out. As the chairman of the board, I look at this as much as part of the historic fabric of the town as I do the houses on each block that we're charged to regulate what homeowners can do to protect and enhance the district. In my view, and I can't speak for the board, but in my view, I view this as part of that fabric of the town. And this, to me, this is really important, and it's very personal, because as I said, I live here. So, Karen, what do you call that?
So generally with all of these notes on here, the main points are we agree with a lot of the sentiments that what we're calling the residential area and what we're calling the transitional blocks really don't need improvements. If we could, make our power lines underground to save our trees, that would be great, but I don't really think that's a functional idea. We definitely felt the commercial block could use some improvements for parking. These particular alternatives show way too much vegetation because they're actually now taking away how much parking we currently have to put up a tree. And so that doesn't really solve the problem. So there could be something that gets worked out. Some of the comments, some of the landscaping, although this is a conceptual design, is not maintenance free. And so, we then have to reprioritize town funds to make sure the town can get out and take care of the weeds and perennials and all that kind of stuff versus just mow. So we agree with the table in the back. That would be amazing to actually not have a community trail on Peach Street, improve the parking on the commercial district, take those funds, and to be honest, whether it's the beach or Fig Street is open for discussion. I think both are viable options because right now we don't have a perimeter around town. We get kind of to the Oyster Farm area. We have a sidewalk that goes down Peach and then or down Fig, and then there's no sidewalk at all. And so maybe that should be a priority to actually have a sidewalk there for people that are getting to Rayfields, for people that are getting to the community garden, so I think that kind of wraps up a lot of the scribbles. But somebody wants to add something.
I think I just want to say again, it's absolutely critical that we maintain as much parking as we can. Absolutely critical. There are other places in the town where there's not enough parking, and it's just because of the layout of the town. There's not a lot you can do about it. So any place we can have parking, we should have it. This is commercial, definitely commercial. It's obviously different many parkings we can put there, we can put there.
Amazing to me that we all seem to agree.
Yeah, I can figure.
And I would say thank you to Aaron, because he does own, there are the two houses on that side of the commercial district, and you guys are really willing to be negotiable to get more parking down there.
I'd like to say one thing, getting that, on the other side of Mason Avenue, the railroad track, that could be problem. At some point, parking will eventually arrive there, which doesn't affect nothing else on the other side of Mason Avenue into Fig and the rest of the city. I would not call your city a parking when you have a block off the street area that's open.
Are you talking about the gravel parking lot?
No, I said, I'm just talking about land. Land usually can't park on.
Well, but but if you take away parking now, with future possible parking, that doesn't solve our problems. We have actually had parking, that gravel area behind Patrick Pan's building is town parking. But if you take a look at it, most of you would not park there because it's impossible to walk on it. It's not maintained, it doesn't have lines on it, it doesn't have lights, it doesn't have anything. So that might be a place to do parking.
One thing this college is doing now is trying to preserve land for people rather than automobiles.
Yeah.
Parking. To minimize, you want to maximize the area you have to use by changing your lifestyle type of vehicle. Now, it's not control for having golf carts.
Yeah.
A golf cart doesn't take as much space as a big truck, 18 foot long and everything. So if you can work toward using more of that type of transportation in this city, this town, you could do away with a lot of the parking and then be able to appreciate what your aesthetics are in your city. Instead of looking at cars all day long, you want to look at the storage department. So don't hone in and get parking as a priority. Try to be away from parking as much as you can outside the perimeter.
My impression was that she wanted to not lose anything. Like the new gym owner was here for a little while, or gym manager, Patrick Elon. He couldn't stay with the whole thing, but he said, we definitely don't want to lose a single parking space. Because they intend to do big business.
If you do storage land for a street light,
Can I just get clarity on who owns that land across from Mason? I thought the railroad did.
Railroad.
Yeah. Okay, so
We are renting the space for the parking lot.
for the parking lot,
Parking lot,
Right.
by the town.
right, but that's the railroad,
Yes.
right? I just wanted to, I thought that was the case.
It can be eventually.
Right, yes, I think that's the hope, but for right now, we don't do that. I just had one other comment that I should have made when we were presenting, and that is, we have almost a community trail already. If you look at the work that's been done on the other side of Peach, now connects to the park, you come around, the sidewalks connect and go down our resident. We have a path already. I love the idea that you guys had about shifting, just speaking for myself, shifting the work to the beachfront, connecting the other places first, because they're not connected. I mean, it makes so much sense.
Does anybody disagree with that?
Yeah.
I asked if anyone disagreed.
There's so many places where there's not sidewalk. We walk all the time. There's so many places where there isn't sidewalk, where you're having to leave sidewalk, walk in the street, go back, sidewalk.
Well, if I may say relative to the sidewalks, because I've been looking at this now for a long time, and it bothers me. We have some additional difficulties with sidewalks if we decide to put it in. There are plenty of places where people put trees exactly where the sidewalk should go. And some of them are very pretty trees, some of them are very old. I know there's some sycamores down on Fig Street that I would hate to see go.
Yes.
But it's right in the middle of where the sidewalk should be. So we, just for the record, if you put a tree in, you need to get VDOT approval as to where you put it. The problem is that in the past that has not been enforced particularly stringently. So people think, oh, I'll put a tree here, I'll put a tree here, I'll put a tree there. And they wind up going in places where it interferes with our ability to put sidewalks in. We have to take the tree out and to put the sidewalk in. And makes the homeowner angry. So just for the future, I'm gonna put a tree in, get a permit to be out.
Just for clarification, for those areas that do not have sidewalks, if there were no trees there, you could put a whose responsibility is that to put a sidewalk in? Is that all? No, that's what I'm asking, because.
Because it's certainly not the problem here by the bake shop or.
Yeah, I'll answer. Town ordinance says it's the responsibility of the homeowner. And so the homeowner has to do it for VDOT standards. You can ask, and you can ask Bill. The town has budgeted money to do sidewalk infill contiguous to town-owned properties. In fact, there's money in this year's budget to do the sidewalk on the west side of the park, where it's lacking a sidewalk now. But the town ordinance requires the homeowner to do it. So
if you build a new home, you have a vacant lot and you build a new home, you're required to put a sidewalk in as the homeowner.
Okay, I just wanted some clarity.
So when are all the new houses that are going up going to put sidewalks in?
They are, they have.
I did it.
I did it.
John Nichols did it. And the other thing is that as time goes on, very gradually over time, the town will put sidewalks in as we have the money to do it, and as it becomes, as it's possible to do that. We can't afford to put it everywhere, sidewalks everywhere in town, but we're going to work on doing that. It'll be, it's going to be a long time from now before it's everywhere, but it'll eventually get there.
I mean, I think she made a valid point when she was talking about the maintenance. I mean, all this stuff, we have sidewalks there on the beach, and I'll walk through sand every day, because the sand's not taking off. There's already Bermuda growing in that flower bed, the flower beds over there, in these new flowers.
Fair enough, but it's a fair enough point, but it's sort of outside the scope of this discussion. But
It's really not, because you're showing all this landscaped area.
You get ready to spend more money in stuff that you've not taken care of, will look worse.
I understand.
I mean, we literally last year we had to bring home, and Kim and Joe and I cleaned all around the crepe myrtles because they don't cut the sprouts. So we go out and take care and maintain them. Not to mention how much we maintain just, the property. So I mean, we don't mind doing it.
You mean in the meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, again, it's a matter of resources. The public works staff does do it a couple of times a year. If it's not, it's not to everybody's satisfaction, we get that, but it's a matter of money.
Right, if we don't have the money now, then we certainly won't have it too much more left.
We're just saying, what's the
I think what
library?
Jennifer is saying is, we live there and, that's our street. And I think I could probably speak for Tammy and Jim on the transitional zone. So, you kind of take ownership and you want that to be a nice presentation, right? So that's why we do that. I walk around there and pick up trash. It's just what, we've taken ownership of that. It's important.
But I have enough to weed, I don't need to be weeding all day.
Because I'm one of those few that lives on a commercial lot. Talk about, I don't really, see it as adding new green space or new vegetation. We have two verges on both sides. The one that's actually on the opposite side for me is wider, right, Bob? Is it
It's a little wider, and
One-
actually,
but so really,
there's less green space. Much less green space.
but basically, this is my opinion, I want to make sure they get united. All I'm saying is I just keep all the diagonal parking that we have, all the on-street parking that we have. I'm just saying, I do think it would beautify our entire street to have a median there, because we have one block, two blocks in the commercial district. To add a median as narrow as it may have to be, I'd like to make it as wide as it can be, reserving the parking, and then I would say the way to do that is you then basically narrow those verges. You sort of take the green spaces that are on both sides, and we put it down the middle instead, and I think it would beautify the commercial block, would give it
Would soften
some
it.
flow into the residential blocks,
Right.
trying to mimic the beautiful, residential block as best as possible by throwing some great, giving space to a couple of great
I
murals.
think, our option was, you have the parking on commercial, but you can still have end caps of the parking area that have a tree in it or vegetation, so it visually gives you.
That's still not a median though. I'd rather lose the birds and give me the median. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, I don't care.
If you do that, then you've got a median in that commercial area that leads you into your residential area. Do you really want that? I mean, wouldn't you prefer to have the commercial look so different from the residential?
I think it's
that
gonna
you wouldn't go into the residential unless you meant to.
I think it's still gonna look so different with filled parking.
between the commercial and the residential.
Well, it's not that.
It's not that.
I live with 3 of us actually live there.
Live there, yeah, I was gonna say you.
And actually not even more than 3. The firehouse is residential too. So it's actually, it's half residential, half commercial.
Trees there in the medium area, you're gonna take away the park that you already have there.
No, I don't think so. Not the way they got there. That's put it at half. No, it goes in the middle.
I know, right there, look, that's where the parking is.
No, it's trees planted on the green space. I mean, there's really only like one less parking space in this drawing than we have right now. It's just more clearly defined. Rather than people coming in any which way, and, you know, you kind of, well, well, I guess that's what the point of pretty much doing your commercial.
If I might interject, just a real quick interjection.
Okay.
The number of parking spaces that you can get in the commercial area with the way that it's shown, based off of DDOT standard, you're gonna be somewhere around 20 to 22 parking spaces. That's what you can get there. Right now, you're not responding to VDOT's requirements because that street goes right out into Mason, okay? VDOT won't allow that to happen. So, you know, right now, you can probably get maybe, I'm guessing here, guys, maybe 30 cars there right now. But once you meet some of those safety standards, you're gonna have it spaced up, you know? But I see it in small towns all the time. They will, the railroad goes out of the town and all of a sudden people start stacking up. And, you know, there's no ramps. So they, you know, they have the unlimited.
Don't do that.
But what's your
So,
Who's the VDOT project manager for this? No, from VDOT. There's not a VDOT,
This is the locally administered project.
every locally administered project has a VDOT project manager.
They don't have a project manager, they have somebody in the district that is an overseer of the project.
And so is it the
It's Hampton Roads.
Hampton Roads District? So what are our next steps, so that everybody knows, what's the next steps?
The next steps are the consultants will take this input back. They will come up with some sort of plan.
that's one person talking. One person talking, please. Bob is trying to tell you what the next steps are. Excuse me?
So the consultants will try to come up with a consensus plan. And there may be a couple of alternatives, but hopefully not, one consensus plan. They'll bring that back to the town and we'll have another public input session on that before, to see if we can achieve some consensus that we can go up to the town council.
I thought we were gonna have an individual meeting with the town council, a special work session where we could discuss this stuff outside of the proposal.
Yeah, that's what he's going to
You just said with them, new proposals. I got the impression it was similar to this, what we just had here tonight.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
That's not
Well,
what-
we would before we take it to that work session, yes.
Oh, so there'd be
There'd be another one of these,
before.
which I don't think we want. We said here was we get one.
How about we see what comes back?
How about we have a council meeting?
Can I make a suggestion? I think before we say what the sure what the next step is, we have to get Bob to come to the town meeting and just update council on what has transpired here and what the input was from everybody. So before we do anything else, we got a lot of input here, and I got a message.
So that would be the September.
The message is, don't do anything to the residential area, fix the commercial area. That's the bottom line, that's the message.
And reallocate funding to other parts of town.
So that would be at the September meeting?
But,
George and
That would be at the September meeting, you think then?
I don't know, I'd like to have it as soon as possible, I don't know how soon I can get it scheduled. But the point is, I gotta get council on speed on what the input was, and get some feedback from them on what, exactly how we proceed, because at this point, I mean, I heard what they have to say, I mean, you don't wanna do it, and maybe we shouldn't reallocate the money.
But what I'm asking is that you're gonna have that conversation with council at the town council meeting in September, or would it be at a work session
It
before
will
that?
either be at a work session or the town council meeting. I am going to shoot for it being at a work session because it is a little less formal and because there are not so many things on the agenda. At a town council meeting, we have, gobs and gobs of stuff. It's better than that.
So how will we be notified when that work session is?
Keep your eyes on the town website. Also, all posted, the agenda's nothing wrong.
And you can give Lenny your email address to be added to the distribution for all the council agendas.
E-notifications.
So we signed up coming in, right?
Yes.
And I'm assuming it asked for email,
Yes. Well,
right?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't, Kim signed up for me, so I would ask, just respectfully ask the town, when this is on the schedule, when this gets put on the schedule for the town council meeting or work session, or whatever it is, that each of us that have signed up receive an email, and it may be outside of the Gazette, but just an email, because we're certainly interested parties, and we absolutely have skin in this game.
Is that
That's
possible?
the-
Fine. Bill, can you make sure that Liddy gets a copy of the sign-in sheets? These are your sheets, correct?
Yes.
I don't know that they have email addresses on this.
Yes.
You can get her a copy of those.
I can forward Libby the group that I have.
Well, it's going to be easier if we just have one list. I want just one list. I don't want her to have.
What we will do is compile the list of what's the sign-in sheet and make it available to whomever. Yes. You got her contact information? Very good.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you guys. You guys are what makes Big Charles special.